looked at it and I said, you know, the Japanese have picked up a lot of market share, and they've done it by improving the yield. And what they've in fact done is they've leveled the playing field. And what that means, if the playing field's level and I no longer have an advantage in my castle with the wizard who's my secret process guy, I don't need a castle and I don't need a wizard. And I can get somebody else to build my chips for me. Now, when we did Seek Technology, we put a fab, an entire fab in place for about $20 or $25 million. So fabs were much cheaper then. 4 years later, they were starting to get more expensive, but that really wasn't the rationale for the fabless idea. The rationale was that the Japanese had leveled the playing field, and you, in fact, didn't need to have your own wafer fab anymore. So the second problem I had is the industry was much smaller in those days. So I went around and I talked to all the guys in the US, and I said, you know, would you be a wafer foundry for me? And the universal answer was no, we're really not interested in that. So I went to Japan, and Toshiba and Fujitsu agreed to be a wafer fab for me. And so as we started Chips and Technologies, we utilized Japanese wafer capacity, which actually at the time happened to be the best as well. And we became the first fabless semiconductor company. And when I walked Gordon through this, he kind of looked at me and said, I still don't understand how you think I started this. But it was a lot of fun. This industry has been the most exciting industry, I think, in the world. When Dan Rather wrote the book, The Greatest Generation, I think this is the greatest industry. And I think it's made contributions to all of our lives that have been unparalleled. In 1955, when I was a little kid, I remember getting my first transistor radio. And the first transistor radio was a real breakthrough because it was smaller and had, you know, battery life and other things. And the first ones were 4 transistor radios, and then 6 transistor radios, and then 10 or 12 transistor radios. And then the scandal broke that some of those transistors actually weren't even connected. They were in the radio, but they weren't even really part of its operation. And I think this was the start of the semiconductor marketing effort. So today, it's interesting. For a while, the industry was counting the number of transistors that impacted our life. And I thought about that, and I said, gee, it'd be kind of interesting tonight to talk a little bit about how many transistors are improving and making the quality of our life better. And when I realized that, you know, we may have 1 billion transistors in our iPod, and billions of transistors in the car, and countless billions of transistors in our PC, it suddenly was a realization of why we don't track that anymore. So it's been a great industry. We can understand very clearly how it's impacted all our lives when we think about where the transistors are and how many of them that we rely on day in and day out. But I think the best part about the industry has been its people. You know, whether it has been learning from Gordon Moore, you know, or helping entrepreneurs with their companies. You know, it's been the best part of the experience is the opportunity of working with the people. And the whole fabless thing was important from the standpoint that it became an enabling factor. And all of the people in this room, and many that aren't in this room, you know, were the guys that were the innovators. They are the guys that made the huge contributions. If you look at the industry, the official fabless figures would suggest that the fabless industry contributes about 20% of the volume. But if we use the classic 80-20 rule, while we contribute 20% of the volume of the semiconductor industry, we contribute 80% of the innovation. And that's really been the important contribution that this whole fabless model has made. Thank you.
please welcome once again Jody Shelton and Dr. Dwight Decker.
Well, thank you, everyone. This has been a great evening, and I would like to actually ask a few people to come up and join me in toasting for another great year. If I could have David Milne, who runs our EMEA Leadership Council, and Dr. Nikki Liu, who runs our AP Leadership Council, and a few other friends, maybe Bob Pepper and Jensen, the big winner this evening. Jensen, if you could join us, and Scott McGregor, and how about Wim Rollins? If you guys could come up and help me toast to great 2008, and hopefully this evening, and all that, with 1,500 people, sold out crowd, hopefully this can be a barometer for a great year ahead. Okay, so cheers, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you. Thanks, cheers. Thanks, guys.